Welcome back, fellow travelers. I feel like I have two things to talk about that are unrelated, so I think I'll make two separate videos, and I'll try to make them as short as possible. One is some fun stuff in Stellarium, like what it looked like on Passover of 30 AD, which I'll cover in this video. And I think in a separate video, I'll talk a little about the upcoming Ring of Fire or wedding ring eclipse on October 14th. So, about the signs in the heavens of Passover in 30 AD. I believe it was the original Revelation 12 sign, even though we know that everything just keeps repeating. There is nothing new under the sun. When it comes to the Jewish feast days, I just trust that the Jews know what they're doing since they've been at it for well over 3,000 years. Their main goal with their calendar is to make sure that Passover and the Feast of Tabernacles always falls on a full moon. These were the two most important mandated feasts of the year, and also marking a change of seasons in the spring and fall. From what I've read, the Jews weren't the only ones who celebrated by having huge gatherings and feasts on these spring and fall full moons. It seems to have been a phenomena across many cultures. Basically, Passover and Sukkot, or Tabernacles, fall on the first full moon of the season. Without electricity or a computer, or even the astronomers at the temple keeping track, the easiest way to determine the first full moon of the spring or fall was to start watching at the dark moon closest to the equinoxes, when the moon is covered. The moment you can see the first sliver of the moon when she first reveals herself will always be in the west, low in the sky, just after sunset. Or maybe you can even spot that tiny sliver just as the sun is starting to set. Then you always know that the full moon is going to occur 2 weeks later. This would have given people all over the land plenty of time to pack it up and make that pilgrimage to Jerusalem for their appointed time. The equinoxes are also very easy to determine because it is the 2 days each year when the sun rises exactly due east and sets due west. It marks the 2 days each year when the sun passes over the equator, which causes the change in seasons. These days, science tells us the exact moments of the full moons, so the Jews simply set up their calendars accordingly. Stellarium is an extremely accurate program that allows us to study the heavens over thousands of years. Due to our precession cycle, the equinoxes will seemingly move by 1 day in the heavens every 128 years, and they will move by 30 degrees or 1 hour on God's clock every 2,160 years. It's all just simple mathematics, and I've checked it all out on Stellarium, going back through ages and ages of time. I would guess it is spot on accurate. Which calendars people use, or what dates things occur on, are somewhat irrelevant. It's all about God's clock in the heavens, if that makes sense. Man's calendars are simply set up to try and clock what's happening on God's clock. Man has always tried to count the days and give names to those days, but it's all about what's happening in the heavens. So anyway, because of the precession cycle, during Jesus' lifetime, the equinox against our backdrop of stars was around the tail of the first fish of Pisces. You can easily find the equinoxes on Stellarium because it is the 2 times each year when the big red E, if you have your cardinal points turned on, when the big red E is on the sun. That is the equinox at sunrise. The red E is due east at the horizon line. If the sun is in line with the E, it is sunrise. If the sun is in line with and near the red W, it would be sunset, as the sun is setting in the west. And the same goes for the moonrise and moonset for each day. If the moon is near and in line with the red E, then that is the point of moonrise. Stellarium also gives us the option of turning on or off the horizon line too. But I usually just leave mine turned off. And I leave my cardinal points turned on so I can see what's going on as far as what time of day it is. This is the day of the spring equinox in 30 AD. Sunrise, due east, the day of the spring equinox. As you can see, the moon is right there too, and it will rise following the sun shortly after sunrise, which also means that it will still be following the sun all day, and the first sliver of the moon may also be sighted immediately following the sunset in the west. I'll show what it looks like at sunset. The moon was very low in the sky in the west as the sun was setting that day, and according to Stellarium, it was only about 1% illuminated as it went down in the west. So there really should be no argument as to when the Jews started their countdown to Passover in 30 AD. They determine when Passover will be by the sighting of the sliver of the moon closest to the equinox, and then Passover would always fall 2 weeks later on the full moon after the equinox. It's pretty simple. And in 30 AD, they would have sighted the sliver of the moon either on the very day of the equinox or possibly the next day for sure. As you can see, I have my stellarium set to Jerusalem, 30 AD, and the Gregorian date would have been April 6th. I've looked at the surrounding years in stellarium, like the years 27 through 33 AD. And Passover doesn't really play out so perfectly as to what is happening here in the heavens at exactly sundown, beginning Passover of 30 AD. The woman, Virgo, really is clothed with the sun, because her constellation would have been rising all afternoon. But as we know, the stars don't come out until after sundown. Let's just take a look with the horizon or ground turned on. This is exactly 6 p.m., and the sun is setting in the west. About 15 minutes later, when all the stars of heaven are starting to become visible, this is what we see as the full moon is just rising in the east. 99.9% illuminated. The moon just doesn't get fuller than that. Do you see what I'm saying? If this really was the day that Jesus was crucified, then Virgo would have been clothed in the sun all afternoon. Then, at sundown, all of her stars would have appeared in the heavens, and there she is in all her glory, perfectly standing on the eastern horizon, and there is the completely full moon right at Virgo's feet to usher in Passover of 30 AD. You would think that all this stuff is common knowledge, and especially with all the people that have Stellarium these days. It's a totally free program on the internet, and I think half of the people have it on their phones. So why don't I hear people talking about this? I've known about it for a while. The original Revelation 12 sign. So I guess in my mind, the Revelation 12 sign of 2017 was actually number 3. Perhaps 3 strikes and we are out. And another way of looking at it, I'm sure everyone is familiar with what John wrote in Revelation 12. And as we know, the entire time that Jesus was revealed to the Jews, they really were clothed with the sun, the light of the world. Jesus said as much in all the Gospels. In John chapter 8, immediately after the woman caught in an adultery scene, then spake Jesus again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. And in John chapter 12, right after the triumphal entry, Jesus said unto them, Yet a little while is the light with you. Walk while ye have the light, lest darkness come upon you. For he that walketh in darkness knoweth not whither he goeth. While ye have the light, believe in the light, that ye may be the children of the light. These things spake Jesus, and departed, and did hide himself from them. And there was Israel, clothed in the sun, and having finally given birth to their long-awaited Messiah. And most also know that Israel is the woman, so often referred to as the woman in the Bible, God's original chosen bride, the harlot in so many of the stories, especially the book of Hosea. Hosea chapter 1, 2nd verse. The beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea. And the Lord said to Hosea, Go, take unto thee a wife of whoredoms, and children of whoredoms, for the land hath committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord. And John writes in Revelation chapter 12, the 1st and 2nd verses, And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. So, who are the 12 stars of the original Revelation 12 sign? There could be 2 references. One, of course, being the 12 tribes, the 12 stars in the crown of Israel. And the other reference could perhaps be the 12 apostles, the crowning jewels of New Jerusalem. Here's another interesting thing. This is April 6th of this year, 2023. And oddly enough, since Stellarium uses the Gregorian calendar, Passover of 30 AD was also April 6th. Crazy how this year lines up so perfectly with 30 AD. This is what it looked like over Jerusalem shortly after sunset and moonrise, beginning the 2nd day of Passover of 2023. The moon, 99.6% illuminated, and about as full as it gets. is exactly passing over the line of the stars of Virgo, as if giving birth to the moon, which I'm always saying represents Israel, forever waxing and waning with God, and only a reflection of the true light. And look at the timestamp: 20 hours, 3 minutes, 0 seconds, 2030. You just can't make this stuff up, people. 2023 to 2030. Let's go.